quiet.
Welcome, everybody, to Indiana Basketball Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Indiana Basketball Weekly show is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, former Indiana Hoosier, national champion, Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, Steve Risley.
And you left off all-around good guy.
Yeah, well, I haven't determined that yet.
That's to be. I don't think Coach Knight ever felt that way. So good to be here tonight, Mike. Let's get all the pleasantries out of the way tonight before we wrap this show up going live after the Duke game on Wednesday. Looks to me like the trailers are over and the feature presentation is about to begin, folks.
Yeah, and the number one Duke Blue Devils will come to Indiana to battle the Hoosiers, and the Hoosiers are 4-2. Duke, I mean, we got to find some ray of light here in this dark cloud that's coming in from Portland. And my first thought is this. Duke is an East Coast school. They had to go all the way to the West Coast to play 3 games in like 5 days. I think they played 4 games in the last week. Could fatigue play a factor in this game?
Certainly. I think, this is, like you said, this is their 4th game in 6 days. Fatigue could play a factor. A couple things there. They're young. I mean, we believe that they're going to start 4 freshmen and a senior. Freshmen, as you know, generally are pretty much on adrenaline rush anyway when they're playing at this level and for the first time in front of people like Duke or Indiana plays against. So there's going to be a little bit of adrenaline there. But mostly I think fatigue will only really become a factor is if we put up a fight. And we haven't seen a lot of physicality out of the Hoosiers so far this year, and a lot of tenaciousness out of the Hoosiers. And what might be our one chink in their armor is their fatigue is really going to mandate that we step up to the plate and use something that we haven't used yet, and that's some physical toughness, some mental toughness, and a little bit more of leaving it all on the floor as any great coach will want you to do. So it could be a factor, but I think it's up to us to make it a factor. Duke's not going to make it be a factor, I guarantee you. They're deep. I mean, I'm sure their 8th guy would be starting on most other college teams in the country.
Yeah, but the thing is this, Indiana has had at least 10 guys play more than 10 minutes. They've got a deep team, and what I would do here, you're playing 4 freshmen and Allen, basically. You got a guy by the name of Marvin Bagley who looks like he might be the NCAA Player of the Year instead of Grayson Allen. 6 double-doubles in 8 games. His last 2 games, 30 points, 15 rebounds, 34 points, 15 rebounds against top-level teams in the Florida Gators and the Texas Longhorns. Why not maybe use all those bodies and just knock the hell out of them a little bit?
I think it's great. I mean, the thing that scares me is looking at their roster, and this Bagley kid is 6'11", 234. He's not a pretzel freshman. I mean, this kid is probably NBA material right now. So
yeah.
I don't know that we have anybody on our team physically strong enough to handle him. You know, the other problem you get into there is you try and put a Juwan on him, out or something like that, or we get him into foul trouble and we lose a player of that caliber, and we're really in trouble. So we got to be careful about protecting our own kids and keeping our talent in the game to try and fight them. So, this is the time where I've harped on since the beginning of the season that I really believe I would like to have seen Coach kick in some zone defense at some point in time just to be prepared for a game like this, because I have not seen a lot of great development on the defensive boards or defensive end of the court, and I'm not seeing a lot of help side defense yet and a lot of communication that we've talked about in the previous shows. And right now is the time when you might want to consider a zone against a team like this with a player of that caliber inside, averaging a double-double as a freshman, and with the beef and size this kid's got. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I think we're right now on paper. It looks like we're feeding some boys to a bunch of hungry men.
Yeah, and if you look at it, it's just not him. I mean, you got Carter has 4 double-doubles. Duvall has 2 double-doubles. I mean, as a team, they've got 12 games of guys being in double-doubles. So they're a complete team, and they move the ball well. If you watched them last night against Florida, they were down 74-57 with 9:48 remaining in the game. And even at that point, I still expected them to come back and win.
Yeah. Coach Krzyzewski is probably the best coach in college basketball right now. I don't think anybody. He's the Bill Belichick of college basketball. The man figures out a way to beat you. He's smart. He's intelligent. He remains calm in controversy or in adversity. He's going to be able to read you, and he's next to Knight, one of the best bench coaches I've ever seen. So I don't think you're going to rattle this basketball team. I think that you're going to have to play the most outstanding game you're going to play all year, maybe even into the national championship game, should for any godforsaken reason Indiana even get there. But, the thing that impresses me about this team, too, offensively is they're not afraid to share the ball. They've got 5 players in solid double figures, they're starting 5 averages, I'm talking 12 points or above. So they're well coached in the sense that they're not about any one player wanting to get points and wanting to lead things. I think we still have a little bit of that going on at IU. It's diminishing, but it's still there a little bit. And I'm sure with 4 freshmen and a senior, they've got a clear-cut leader on that basketball team. Allen plays hard. He plays very physical. He plays tough. He's a kid you want to look up to. He's was leading scorer. He's not leading scorer. He's not forsaking his role in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this team is the real package right now in college basketball.
Yeah, and I think the key to winning this game, number one, we've got to shoot lights out. They shot very well from the three-point line against Eastern Michigan. I would think that Robert Johnson, Josh Newkirk are all huge in this, but the one thing they can't do is come out and be in the mindset, well, we got to get hot from the three-point line. They need to come out, they need to dribble, they need to dribble into the paint, kick the ball out to get the threes, and actually get some clean shots. And what I'm afraid of is playing against Duke. Duke is going to force this pace, and the game's going to kind of go real fast for these guys early on, and I'm just worried they're going to come out and just start firing three-pointers.
You stole my thunder exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Indiana's best chance to win this game is to do what they did in the last couple of games, and that's, try to score over half their points on the inside, and then take the kick out and take the wide open threes, and remain calm. But I agree with you. Duke's going to force the pace of this game, and control it. It appears that's what I would guess, is that it's going to happen. And if we get into a helter-skelter game where we revert back to our natural, athletic instincts as opposed to playing with our brains, that's what's going to happen. We're going to come down. We're going to cross half court. We're going to take the first open three we can, trying to stay close or trying to get back in the game or trying to keep a lead in the game. The last couple of games we played, starting with the Seton Hall game to some degree, then getting better and better, we were punching it inside, getting a good balance of scoring inside. Like I said, last game, I think over 50% of our points came from inside the paint or inside the three-point arc. And we got wide open threes. I mean, our 2 guards were our leading scorers, and it was probably the least hardest they worked to get wide open three-pointers because we were punching the ball inside. If Indiana wants to have a legitimate chance to do that, they are going to have to stay with that philosophy of basketball on the offensive end. If they escape that philosophy at all, Duke will just eat them alive. We'll just control the tempo of this game, and Indiana will end up in a desperate situation where they will just be firing threes right at the start of the second half.
Yeah, and the thing is, against Seton Hall, they kind of controlled the tempo for a half. But Seton Hall is more of a front court team. The back court's not that great. I mean, they're good, but not like Duke. So I think controlling the pace here is going to be paramount. And I think it's going to be really hard to do. I know Indiana's only turned the ball over 16 times in the last 2 games, but that was Eastern Michigan and Arkansas State. And my other concern is this. It seems like, the Arkansas State game, Juwan Morgan played well. The next game against Eastern Michigan, Josh Newkirk played well. To be able to play with Duke and at Duke's level, everybody has to play well at the same time.
No doubt, no doubt. Everybody's got to be on point. You don't know how these kids are going to react mentally to this. I mean, they're still all a little bit unsure of themselves. They're still searching for some on-court leadership. But it is going to have to take one of those deals. And the greatest thing that could happen would be if Indiana can make an early run in the game and just kind of, kick it in and get sweaty and get breathing hard and get into the flow of the game, take a couple shots from Duke and withstand it. And then they start to, slowly believe, hey, we can play, we can stay. And then it gets a little gritty. And that's what's going to have to happen. We're going to have to stay out of foul trouble. And, guarding against their big kid, I don't know how that's going to fly because I have not seen great defensive pressure from our basketball team anywhere on the court, let alone in the paint or in the post. I mean, like you said, Seton Hall took it to us inside. That's primarily where they beat us, was with their inside play. And until we get better at helping out, cutting off baselines, forcing people back into the middle where there are bodies to at least slow people from getting the penetration, taking the charge in the proper place, all those fundamental things that I'm sure that Coach has been working on since he came to IU have got to start falling into place for this team Wednesday night to have a chance to win this game. Not to mention even it's a nationally televised game. It's an ACC Big Ten challenge. It's going to be hyped big time. It's two storied programs. It is two of the most legendary programs in college basketball this century, this half a century. So there's a lot of pride on the line, a lot of everything. On paper, it surely seems that we're outmatched, but there are those who still believe the 81 team would have beat the 76 team in the championship game.
All right, you bring that up every show. I've already agreed with you, Steve. Let it go. The one guy that I think deserves a special mention on this show is freshman point guard Al Durham, who I didn't realize this till I was just looking at the stats, but he's played 167 minutes this season and committed just 2 turnovers. He hasn't committed a turnover in over 2 weeks. He played 29 minutes turnover-free at Seton Hall.
There you go. There's your ball control right there. There's your controlling the tempo. There's your player on the court who's going to not take bad risks. He's going to take the calculated risk, and he has a lot of good talent around him that's going to make him down to only have 2 turnovers because somebody's got to catch everything you pass.
Yeah.
And if the talent's good at the other end, then that reverts into a completion, not a turnover or an interception or an incomplete pass, as you football coaches would better understand. But you have that kind of leadership on your court, or your primary ball handler only making 2 turnovers. That tells me it's a kid's hard to rattle.
Yeah, and I think in the end, 99% chance we're probably going to lose this game. But I think with what's coming up over the next 2 weeks, I think this is where this team should be able to improve because they're going to have to. I mean, you've got Duke, 2 days off at Michigan, 1 day off, Iowa here, 4 days off at Louisville, 6 days off Notre Dame and Indianapolis. So I think we're about to find out just how far Indiana has come after an offseason, a preseason, and 3 weeks of a regular season under Coach Miller.
Yeah, and don't forget you got finals in there too. I mean, they are still student athletes. So there is classes and finals are going to be taken along that time. So there is going to be the primary goal of being in college is to get an education and study. So they'll have that with them too. I think the takeaway here is this game is really a good preparation and a good test to see where we stack up against the best talent in the country, and great preparation for what we're going to be facing in the Big Ten night in and night out. And obviously we're not going to be facing the number 1 team in the country in the Big Ten, but the Big Ten, obviously everybody knows, is a very physical league. And every team in the Big Ten this year, because I think it's a very balanced year for the Big Ten, there's not one stellar team other than Michigan State, obviously, is emerging. as a powerhouse, but for the rest of the league, it's pretty well balanced right now. And it's always tough to tell in preseason because you don't know the caliber of teams everybody's playing. But this is a great test for us to, again, look and see where we've come and where we got to go, and also in terms of preparation for opening up, the following week against two quality Big Ten programs as well.
All right, Steve.
There's a lot to be gained from Wednesday night. And you never know. How many times have we seen Indiana pull that magical game out? Last time was Kentucky. Last time we did that, we came out of nowhere and knocked off Kentucky.
Yeah, but I don't think that was near as big an upset as this would be.
Oh, no. This would be the biggest win in Coach Miller's career. And I don't know that short of a national championship, he'd ever have a bigger one, given the amount of talent and time he's had to work with. And the magnitude of this basketball game is being played. So, it'll be fun for a while. And then I think Modern Family's on at 9:00. So we may be switching over to Modern Family.
Not where I live, because where I live is the East Coast, so it starts at 9:30. So right. Modern Family in the middle have already been on by then.
You'll be turning on Jimmy Fallon.
No, I'll
be turning on Modern Family. Yeah, but I think I'm a Hoosier. I'm going to bleed cream and crimson until the day I die, and I want to see Indiana play extremely well, and that's what I want to see. I want to see Indiana play well. You can almost not look at wins and losses in this game, but I want to see Indiana go and have people say, "Man, I'll tell you what, that's a good match. That's a good coach. He's putting a good program in. And in a couple of years, Indiana's going to be sitting where Duke is." That's what I would really realistically want to take away from this game Wednesday night.
All right, Steve. I want to remind everybody that we'll be live on thegruelingtruth.net, on Spreaker, and also you can download the Grueling Truth app on the iTunes Store to hear us live immediately following the game against Duke on Wednesday night. So, Steve, I'm not going to ask you for a prediction because predictions are stupid, especially in this game. Hopefully Indiana plays well. And I think in the end, this is a no-lose situation no matter what happens, because I think these guys will get to see exactly how you're supposed to play the game, and hopefully they learn from that.
I'll give you a prediction. Mike, I'll give you a prediction. Indiana plays the best game they've played all year to date. I believe these kids will rise to the occasion and give the best effort they possibly can give. And I think they'll be best prepared they've been. And I think they will make the biggest fundamental growth they've made all year on Wednesday night. That's my prediction.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest thing here is that they've played 4 games in 6 days. Indiana hasn't played since Friday. They've actually been able to sit there and watch Duke play a couple games in the meantime. They're going to be well-rested. Right. I mean, Archie Miller's a good basketball coach. He proved that at Dayton, taking them to multiple Final Fours, got them to the Elite Eight one time. So I don't have any doubt that Archie Miller can coach with Mike Krzyzewski. I just don't know about out-coaching Mike Krzyzewski.
I don't know either, but I do know that, Coach Miller comes in, rides in on the reputation of his defensive prowess. If anybody can find a niche, in their armor, kink in their armor, so to speak, and if we can find something defensively, if he can get his team to react to that, we've got a chance, because Coach Miller is a great defensive coach. And when you're talking about an offense as high-powered as theirs is, as physical as they are, you got to have to find that kink in the armor somewhere, and you're going to have to exploit it. And I believe if it's there, Coach Miller will find it, and we'll just see if we can get the players to exploit it. It's all we can hope for and do.
All
Go
right.
enjoy it. Have fun. It's a game. It's why we roll the ball on the court. I would much rather play these games all preseason long than to sit there and play Howard and Brown and the teams of that nature.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to be gained from this game than Indiana playing Howard or Brown or even losing to Indiana State. They'll grow exponentially in this game.
Well, I think the other good thing is they played Seton Hall, which is not way far below the caliber of Duke. Seton Hall, I think is a top 25 program that might be able to win a couple games in the tournament. So they have seen something at least similar to this before. I think it would be worse if they hadn't played a Seton Hall and they just jumped out after playing 5 or 6 teams that aren't that good and played Duke right then.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Good observation again. I also would say that I think probably the best game, most physical game we played was against Seton Hall this year. Any young team will always tend to play to the level of their opponents. It's just nature of a young basketball team. Unless you're Duke, who just has that superior talent that can get above that. But I think the best, most physical game we played was against Seton Hall. Still, even though we've won games since then and played lesser quality opponents. I think we all got most excited after the Seton Hall game when we did our show. I remember talking after that game. We were both very excited about the growth we saw and some of the highlights we saw in that game. Even though we lost the game, we felt really good about that. So let's hope we take that same thought process away after the game on Wednesday night. Other than that, there's not much else we can say. It's out there. On paper, it doesn't look pretty, but that's why we don't play the games on computers.
All right, guys, we are going to wrap the show up for tonight. Make sure you join us right after the Indiana Duke game Wednesday night. You can hear what me and Steve think about this, or what Steve and I think about this. I'm from Indiana, but I'm not an animal, Steve. I have taken an English class or two. So I want to remind everybody, you can check out tomorrow night the NFL Pick'em Show live at 10:30 on thegruelingtruth.net. Then Wednesday night, the College Football Pick'em Show at 9. Immediately following the Indiana Duke game, Indiana Basketball Weekly with Steve and myself. So, for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.